I'd like to focus our conversation on AI, artificial intelligence, and ways in which you see it changing and challenging what it means to be human. Can you describe some of the ways you see AI disrupting humanity? And let's look over the next 5 years, if that's an appropriate time frame.
As a futurist, I work with what's called a cone of uncertainty. And the easiest way to picture this visual is if you've ever been watching a weather forecast early on during a hurricane, there's a little storm starting out, and they know within a day, like they're quite certain it's going to move in this direction. 2 days out, it gets a little wider, and then a week out, it could veer, all the way to the north, into the Atlantic, or it could veer all the way to the south into the Gulf of Mexico. That things become a lot more uncertain the further out in the future we go. And so what I'm quite confident of talking about is like what's happening today, what's going to happen in the next year. And then like 2 years out, I'm like 75% there certain. 3 years out, let's say 50-50. And then when we go out to 4 and 5 years, I'm sort of somewhere in the 20 to 30% range. So having said that, is that it is no surprise that artificial intelligence is here today. It's transforming our life and our work. And I think the things that I'm quite certain of in the next year are we're going to continue to see artificial intelligence get significantly better at disease diagnosis. And so we're going to start catching cancer and diseases and even Alzheimer's a lot sooner than we already were. I think I'm also quite certain that we're going to begin seeing the first significant job losses. And I think that those are going to be coders. I think the advance in self-driving cars is going to start taking some Uber jobs. I think with the advance in agentic AI, and we can get into what that is that some marketing jobs are going to start being transformed and displaced. I think it's going to move into the legal profession and do discovery work. And so paralegal profession is going to change and some job losses are going to be there. I'm also quite certain on the negative side, and I think those job losses are also sort of negative. I want to be clear about that, is that this whole issue of deep fakes is already real. It's going to become more prominent. But I think the thing that's already happening today, and most people just don't understand, is the internet is not only breaking, it's broken. There's so much slop out there. The easiest way, I think, for your listeners and viewers to think about this is if you go to Yelp today for a review of a restaurant, there's a 60% chance that wasn't even written by a real person. And so our ability to trust the information on the internet, but then also to be able to trust what we are seeing with our eyes is going to be really difficult. And just going back to what I'm quite certain of, how we're using voice prompts now to create videos, very realistic videos. And so I think that this another really big trend that I'm quite confident of saying is we're moving from a world of social media to social production. People are going to start being able to produce some really good, not just short videos and TikToks, but I mean, there's already the first entire AI-generated full-length movie out there. I have no idea if it's very good. My guess is it's not very good, but just because it's not good today doesn't mean it's not going to get better. And then the other thing I'm quite certain of, it's already happened, but it's going to happen more and more often. Scamming is going to get better. And then I suspect we've already seen the first really major AI-generated cyber attack, but these are going to become even more prominent in the future. And to me, what's interesting about the cyber attacks is how they might change how we react to the world around us. And I kind of want to get into this theme of business leaders need to be taking seriously this notion of resilience. I think one of the really big challenges in AI is It's such a powerful tool with so many beneficial applications. And it is going to enhance productivity. It's going to help us cure disease. It's going to have a lot of wonderful applications. But if it breaks, you'd better be prepared to do things the old-fashioned way. And so I think that this idea of resilience is one that I'm really trying to work with my clients on, is to say, and you almost have to think about it in terms of, and I use the term strategic inefficiency, is that you probably won't have to rely on these old sort of human things. But again, if everything breaks, you'll be really thankful that you have those old skills in your hip pocket. Here's the metaphor I use, and I think it'll help your audience understand it. When I was in the Navy, I almost washed out of officer candidate school, which is a really polite way of saying I almost flunked out. And the reason I almost flunked out is because I had a really hard time with celestial navigation. You have to use a device called the sextant, and you have to use the angle of the stars and the sun, and then you use a complicated mathematical table to discern exactly where you are. Well, I got by with the equivalent of a C-, and so I was commissioned. But 5 years after I got out of the Navy in the early 90s, they got rid of that requirement because they said, oh, we now have satellites. We don't have to be spending all of this time training our officers to learn this ancient and archaic skill. But just a few years ago, they reinstituted it. Why? Because they understood in the next hot war, the first thing our opponents are going to take out are going to be our satellites. We're going to have a generation of sailors who don't know where the hell they are in the middle of the ocean. That ain't good. And to me, that's the metaphor of the future, is that we're going to have to retain human knowledge and these old skills in the event all of this modern, wonderful, great technology breaks down or is somehow hacked.
Can you talk about some of the signals that you have seen to help inform the description that you just gave us?
A lot of my signals are just coming from my research. And so when you look at least diagnosing disease earlier, there are already numerous examples of people using artificial intelligence to detect breast cancer, up to 5 years earlier, the same with dementia and other things. And so I think that research is out there. The other signals that I look for are experiments, or where I see companies or organizations already embracing these tools. And I just want to go back to marketing and agentic AI. And just so if your listeners don't know, agentic AI are going to be software bots or programs that are capable of multiple step actions. So the easiest way to think about it is, if you're planning a trip in a year's time, I think that artificial intelligence is going to be able to, on your behalf, sort of find your preferred flights, understand what time of the day you like to move, if you prefer the aisle or the window. It's going to find hotels, other things, maybe even arrange rides for you. It's going to act on your behalf. And so I already see companies doing that. And so I look for companies that are engaging in experiments. And then the other signals I use are William Gibson, the science fiction writer, has a great quote that says, the future's already here, it's just not evenly distributed. And what he means is, or the way I've always taken it to mean, is the future is here, it's just out on the fringe. And so you actually have to go out to the fringe to see what people are already playing around with, what they're doing and what they're talking about. So those are kind of the signals that I look for.